Welcome to the Investment Banking Leaders Podcast, brought to you by the Investment Banking Leaders Club, your exclusive access to the industry's most successful leaders. These experts have closed thousands of deals, generating hundreds of billions of dollars, and they're here to share their strategies, insights, and leadership lessons that can fast-track your career. But the learning doesn't stop here. Join the Investment Banking Leaders Club at ibleadersclub.com for even more exclusive insights, leadership frameworks, and career-accelerating resources and events. Thanks for joining us, and best of luck on your growth journey. We have another terrific guest for you today. I'm super excited to be joined by Evie Vanezi, who's the EMEA Chief Executive Officer at Jefferies here in London. Now, from a start in risk management during the financial crisis to now leading Jefferies throughout EMEA, Evie is a remarkable example of bold leadership, strategic thinking, and cultural impact. Evie has helped shape Jefferies' ambitious growth expansion across EMEA, championed inclusion and diversity through important initiatives such as JWIN, which is the Jefferies Women's Initiative Network, an inspiring fireside chat series that amplifies voices and builds community. And today we'll explore Evie's path from risk to the C-suite, what it takes to drive growth across diverse markets, and how she builds inclusive, high-performing teams at scale. So Evie, welcome to the Investment Banking Leaders Podcast. It's a real pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Peter. It's great to be here with you today.
Why don't we start? Let's go back to the beginning of your journey. What initially drew you into risk management, and how did that background shape your leadership style today?
As we discussed last time we met, I often say that all of us are risk managers in our everyday lives. What initially drew me into the field was the challenge and the appeal of taking complex, fast-moving situations and turning them into balanced, thoughtful decisions. I've always believed that risk management shouldn't just be a process or a control function. It should be a true commercial and strategic partnership to the business. I was fascinated by the challenge of bringing transparency to decision-making, helping teams make informed choices rather than emotional ones, and contributing to a more dynamic, collaborative process. Now, that early experience taught me resilience, it taught me adaptability and composure. So when you spend your formative years assessing and mitigating risks, you learn how to stay calm under pressure, to stay grounded in moments of uncertainty, cutting through the noise, and adjusting quickly when circumstances change. So those experiences continue to influence how I lead teams today, especially during periods of rapid change or crisis.
I can see in the world we live in today how they're really useful skills to have, and to have a great grounding and stay calm under pressure. And I love the way that you say everyone has a part to play in risk as part of your everyday. And you experienced the financial crisis in the early stage of your career. What lessons did that period teach you about risk? You already touched on resilience and maybe even opportunity as well.
Yeah, the financial experience was a very formative experience for me. I want to believe for all of us. It was challenging, it was intense, it was incredibly educational for all of us, like every other financial crisis. It taught me very early on that complacency is one of the biggest risks in our industry. Economic stability is never guaranteed, and you have to stay vigilant, especially when markets feel euphoric or when leverage and risk-taking start creeping up in ways that feel normal. So it also reinforced just how interconnected everything is, whether it's markets, regions, institutions. A shock in one corner of the system can ripple across the globe in minutes. So understanding the broader ecosystem and contagion risk as a result is essential. So another big lesson for me was the importance of balancing quantitative models with human judgment. Models are powerful tools, but they cannot replace experience, they cannot replace context, or even common sense, especially in rapidly changing environments. And finally, for me, it shaped my mindset. In a crisis, you learn to stay calm, you assess things quickly, and you look for the opportunities that emerge from disruption. So for me personally at the time, and you touched about opportunity, that period opened doors. Risk management became a core focus across the industry. And I saw that as an opportunity to lean in, build expertise, and grow my career in ways I hadn't initially anticipated.
I love that. And when I talk to great leaders, it always inspires me how they use any challenges or crises to lead to educational piece and look at the opportunities available. And I find it really interesting not to get complacent, as you say. Everything's interconnected. Things travel faster than they ever have. So really balancing the models with the human judgment makes a lot of sense. So thanks for sharing. I guess many investment bankers may see risk as a necessary hurdle and not always as a strategic asset. What do you think bankers could better understand about risk?
I genuinely think the mindset around risk in investment banking has changed a lot in recent years. More people now see that strong risk management isn't just a hurdle, it's actually a strategic advantage. When you approach it the right way, risk helps you make better decisions, it helps you understand your clients more deeply, and you build solutions as a result that stand the test of time. So embedding risk awareness into the way we structure deals can prevent future volatility and protect both the firm's and the client's reputation. And tools like hedging and diversification aren't about limiting what you or I do, they're about optimizing performance across different market conditions. Ultimately, robust risk management sets you up for the longer term sustainable success.
I can understand how you put that. And like you say, it is a strategic advantage, and better decisions, understanding client more should all be things that we're thinking about in every deal situation. So I love that take. Thanks for sharing. Let's talk a little bit about investment banking growth and market view at Jefferies. What does it take to succeed in today's European public markets, in your opinion?
Despite the scale of private capital available today, public markets continue to offer differentiated advantages. The IPO process imposes a level of scrutiny and a level of disclosure that can enhance credibility with customers, with counterparties, with employees. So public equity also provides liquidity, acquisition currency, and ongoing access to a broad institutional investor base. So what we're seeing in early 2026 is a European equity market that's reopening on far more solid foundations. Activity is picking up, but the bar remains high. So companies that pair structural growth with disciplined execution and a credible long-term value proposition are resonating most with investors. For issuers that are prepared to meet that bar, then Europe's public markets are demonstrating renewed depth and appetite.
It's great to see the positivity you have there. And again, I guess raising the bar, being competitive is the key to capturing that. What are the key drivers of the renewed activity we're seeing in the market?
We're seeing renewed activity driven by a combination of improving investor confidence, more realistic pricing expectations, and a healthy pipeline of both sponsor-backed and corporate deals coming to market. It's an active environment, but still a very selective one. Investors are gravitating towards businesses with clear structural demand drivers, durable revenue visibility, and businesses with a proven track record of value creation over time. Public investors are also drawing sharper distinctions between genuinely high-quality assets and transactions motivated primarily by liquidity needs. So that's why rigorous pre-marketing, a compelling equity story, and real clarity around the long-term opportunity are also important in today's markets.
I'm hearing that across the street when I'm speaking to different leaders as well. Interesting to hear your take. And I know Jefferies has recently expanded across the Middle East. What have been some of the key leadership decisions in expanding into the region?
We've been very intentional about our expansion in the Middle East. For us, it's a long-term investment to strengthen our broader EMEA platform in a region that's become a real hub for capital formation and cross-border activity. The key leadership decisions really came down to three things: committing locally, building the full product suite, and hiring outstanding talent regionally. We started with equity sales to serve MENA clients. We quickly scaled into a much broader offering: investment banking, equities, including research, and fixed income emerging markets has become a hub for us. So we could support sovereign wealth funds, institutions, and corporates with the same integrated coverage they expect from us globally. We also expanded our asset management footprint and began marketing our funds locally, reflecting the depth of institutional capital in the region. So that combination of local presence, capability build, and leadership focus is what's driven our momentum.
Again, thanks for sharing. And I know how intentional you've been there, and it's great to see that's paying off. What makes a banker successful in the EMEA region? Are there qualities or mindsets that are especially valuable?
EMEA is such a diverse region that there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to banking here. Ultimately, success in EMEA comes down to cultural intelligence, adaptability, and a relationship-driven approach, all, of course, underpinned by a strong technical foundation. To be successful, you really have to appreciate the cultural nuances and the importance of long-term relationship building. Clients across the UK, Europe, and the Middle East all have different expectations, different communication styles, different ways of doing business. So adaptability is key. You also need a strong grasp of the regulatory and political landscape and the geopolitical landscape. So Europe is highly fragmented and heavily regulated, and the best bankers are the ones who anticipate those constraints early and build them thoughtfully into deal structuring. Relationships matter hugely in this region, particularly with family-owned or founder-led businesses where trust is built over years and not through a single pitch. So that long-term mindset is essential. Another important quality is versatility. EMEA bankers often cover multiple countries and products, so being comfortable switching between those really helps. And speaking another language to serve the local clients can be a real advantage.
Lots of great feedback there. So cultural intelligence, adaptability, that relationship approach, especially in the family space, cultural nuances, long-term mindset, versatility. So really resonates with me. And I know we've got a lot of EMEA bankers listening today, so that will be a good lesson for them. And I think it was Dominic Lester who I spoke with, who talked a lot about being a cultural chameleon and a diplomat almost in that space. It makes a lot of sense. Let's talk a little bit more about culture then, I guess. Culture, inclusion, and maybe even the power of community, which is something really close to my heart with what we're doing at the Investment Banking Leaders Club. I know you're really passionate about building culture and empowering people. You've been instrumental in initiatives like JWIN, which was the Jefferies Women's Initiative Network, and the Leadership Journey Fireside Chats, initiatives that elevate stories and voices across Jefferies as a whole. What inspired you to create these spaces, and what impact are you seeing from them across the firm?
Yeah, this is a topic very close to my heart. So culture isn't a nice to have for us. It genuinely shapes retention, it shapes engagement, it shapes how people show up for their teams and for their clients. That's why creating community spaces at Jefferies has been so important to us. We wanted to build a sense of community across the firm, somewhere people could connect, learn from one another, and feel supported in their careers and in the firm. Our employee resource groups, including JWIN, play a huge part in that. They give employees across the firm a platform to connect, to develop, to find sponsors, to network, and to create opportunities for people to share their stories. And these conversations build confidence, they deepen cross-firm relationships, and they create a stronger sense of belonging. And you can feel the ripple effects across the organization. People feel more connected, they feel more supported, and more encouraged to bring their full authentic selves to work.
I can see how powerful that is towards engagement. As you say, congrats on all you're doing there. And it's nice to see a firm really taking culture so seriously. I think giving people that sense of community, the ability to connect and learn from each other is so important. And as you say, I think you get it back tenfold in engagement and growth. So keep up the great work in that area. For professionals that are maybe early in their career, whether they're navigating finance as a first generation graduate or someone from a non-traditional background, or maybe they're just trying to find their place, what advice would you share on building a long and meaningful career in the industry?
A few thoughts here. I'd say start by staying exceptionally curious. Don't just execute, understand the client, the story, and the decisions your work is supporting. And that curiosity shouldn't fade, no matter how senior you become. Build relationships with intention. The strongest careers are built long before you need anything from anyone. And don't see a non-traditional background as a disadvantage. It can be a real edge. Your perspective is a strength. Advocate for yourself. Ask for opportunities and stretch assignments. People cannot support ambitions they don't know about. And learn to take feedback and actually use it and execute it, and learn from any mistakes you made. Take that as an opportunity. And above all, protect your reputation from day one. Integrity and trust are everything in this business. And I would finish by saying that resilience and persistence are key in this industry. It is very hard work. You can make mistakes. You can learn from each and every single opportunity. I sometimes think that you need to keep an eye on the destination, but recognize that the most important skill is the experience, the knowledge, the wisdom you can get from the journey. There is a poem, Ithaca, by Gavafis, that I have used throughout my life, since using it in my high school graduation speech, and it has carried me throughout my career, which is all about the wisdom and the experiences you get through the journey.
I think that's a great point. And I think in investment banking, you're exposed to so many great experiences, often quite early in your career. So being able to absorb that as a sponge, use the learning opportunities available is so important. And I love your point on curiosity, right? Always getting to the why, as to why you're doing things versus just doing them. And that can be really powerful as well. So again, and the relationships you mentioned really strikes a chord. What about for young women in finance today, especially those wondering whether there's space for them at the top? What's your message to them?
I would say that there's absolutely space for them at the top. That is what I would say to them. And don't wait until you feel 100% ready. If you're excited about an opportunity, put your hand up, lean in. Your voice matters in the room, even when you are the youngest or the only one who looks like you. Do great work, keep working hard, make your ambition visible so the right people know what you're working towards, and build a strong peer community. Those relationships become your future allies and champions. And I would always advise to everyone, as you move upwards, make sure you pay it forward and help others rise with you.
Payback. I love that. And again, yeah, that ambition now come up a couple of times. I guess being intentional about naming that has been really key for you and a key point. If we talk about leading with purpose, what's your leadership philosophy and how do you build followership across a really high performance environment like you have at Jefferies?
My leadership philosophy is rooted in bringing people together around a shared purpose. You talked about it being intentional, and that's about having a shared purpose. I believe strongly in leading by example and in walking the talk, setting the tone through actions and not just words. For me, it's about creating an environment where people feel inspired to exceed expectations because they believe in the long-term vision we're building. Followership comes from authenticity and alignment. When you share the values of the organization and stay consistent in how you show up, people naturally want to be part of that journey. And in a high-performance culture like Jefferies, that sense of shared commitment is what really brings teams together.
I like that alignment. And again, when that purpose is in place, I can understand why it's so powerful. Has empathy always been part of your leadership style, or is it something you developed over your career?
Empathy has always been part of who I am. But it's definitely something I've had to develop more intentionally as I've taken on bigger leadership roles. When you're responsible for teams, their performance and their well-being, you become much more aware of how important it is to really listen and actively listen and understand what people are thinking and feeling. So I have to remind myself to stay present, to listen actively, and to take meaningful steps to support people. And that's how you build trust and create an environment where people can do their best work.
That active listening is a hard skill to master, but so important, not just internally, but with clients as well. So I can understand why that's such an important part of the mix. And you mentioned trust, and I know you're known for building trust. What does that look like in practice, especially across, as we've already shared, lots of different cultures and regions?
Across so many regions and cultures, building trust really comes down to investing time and being consistent. So our greatest asset is our people. That's what we always say. So I try to approach every relationship with patience and a genuine commitment to understanding how people work and what they need and their thoughts and get feedback from them as well. People want to feel trusted, and that means creating an environment where they're empowered, where they feel safe to make mistakes, to escalate issues early, and to speak openly. Trust also builds through timely and honest feedback. When people know you're invested in their success, that's when real long-term relationships take shape, regardless of culture or geography.
Yeah, that time, people, having patience, help people work what they need, empower them. I can understand why all of this leads to a trusting relationship. So again, thanks for sharing your insights. I want to move to a couple of personal reflections, if you don't mind. Was there a specific risk or bold decision you took that changed the trajectory of your career?
Joining Jefferies was a real turning point for me. At the time, I had offers from larger banks in more traditional, well-defined roles, but I was genuinely drawn to the entrepreneurial culture here. The firm was growing fast, the hierarchy was flat. I came in and met everyone in an afternoon as part of the process, and there was a sense of possibility that really resonated with me. So choosing Jefferies over a more conventional path felt like a bold move at the time, but it's a decision that has shaped my entire career and brought me to where I am today.
It certainly seems to be paid off. So congrats on making that risk work. And what's the best piece of advice you've ever received, and why?
I think the best piece of advice I've received is to treat people with respect, with kindness, and with empathy. Your relationships and your reputation are everything in this industry. And both are built on trust, which we've talked about. I was also told to choose my battles and to be patient. And because timing, judgment, and staying focused on what truly matters make all the difference over a long career. And having this medium to longer term view rather than a short term view has definitely helped me.
Again, great advice. And I'm sure our listeners can take something away from that. And I'm a big believer that leaders are readers. And it doesn't have to just be books these days, right? There's so many other materials available. But are there certain materials that you recommend that have had a really big impact on you in your career?
I will completely agree with you that leaders are readers. So I found that different books and conversations resonate at different stages of our lives and careers. So I actually often revisit things, whether it's books, podcasts, with a fresh perspective. Maybe a few to choose from. A classic that stayed with me is How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's timeless, first published in 1936. It's timeless in the way it highlights the importance of genuine relationships and making people feel valued, which we talked about relationships being a key part of success in this industry. Another favorite by me is Bounce by Matthew Said. It reinforces the power of hard work and deliberate practice, something I think applies far beyond sport. I call it hard work beats talent, except when talent works hard. More recently, I've enjoyed revisiting The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. It is a great reminder to stay present, to be patient, to take thoughtful action. And I think the last one is Let Them by Mel Robbins. It has been helpful in shifting mindset. It's focusing less on trying to control others' reactions and more on what you can influence yourself. So each of these has helped shape how I think and lead in different ways. In general, I would say biographies of great leaders across many industries. I used one from sports, but it's really worth reading, and people that are curious can learn a lot from them.
I like that. How to Win Friends and Influence People is one of my favorite books, so I can definitely connect with that one. I'm yet to read Bounce, but that sounds to me that's so important, particularly in grit and how to show up. And yeah, Power of Now, staying present. I don't think that's ever been more important with everything that's going on with technology at the moment. So being a parent of young boys, that's certainly something which I'll pick up a copy of that. And we'll drop a lot of these in the show notes for our listeners as well. And if you could go back to your younger self starting out in banking, knowing what you know now, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
We touched a little bit on it, but I'll tell myself that your reputation matters from day one. Be thoughtful, work hard, don't be afraid to put your hand up for more, and be resilient when something does not go your way. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn. Build relationships with intention, surround yourself with people who lift you up, and invest in those connections early. And most importantly, to enjoy the journey. because the experiences, the people, and the lessons along the way are what truly shapes our careers.
Enjoy the journey. I hear that a lot, and I think it's so important, right? It's easy to get that tunnel vision, especially in a demanding and fast-paced industry, but we can't forget to enjoy the ride that we're on. And let's wrap this. I guess you've touched on this quite a bit in different pockets, but I just want to put a bow on it. Our podcast is really about helping those aspiring leaders in the industry. Many of them are in the toughest transition of their career and their life to make that step from execution to origination and successful leaders. If you had to pick the top 3 skills or mindsets, if you will, that make aspiring leaders fantastic leaders, what would you suggest they need to develop?
If I had to go with 3 core mindsets aspiring leaders that really need today, I would say, and these are things that we have touched on, the first is stay curious. I will keep saying this, keep learning, keep evolving, and always look for better ways to solve problems. The second is to build meaningful relationships. It is a small industry, and the way you show up for clients, for colleagues, for stakeholders really shapes your reputation. And thirdly, lead with kindness and confidence. Be respectful, believe in yourself, and treat feedback as something continuous. And personally, I always remind myself never to forget where I came from. The people who supported me early on shaped my journey, and I try to pay that forward by helping others rise too.
What a way to end today's episode, Evie. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. It's rare to hear such a thoughtful and human approach to leadership in banking, and your journey from risk to regional CEO, your passion for empowering others, building trust, and your growth mindset are incredibly inspiring for me, and I'm sure many of our listeners as well. Thanks again for your time, and wishing you and your team at Jefferies continued success across the region and of course beyond.
Hey, thank you. It was a real pleasure to talk to you. Wishing you and everyone who will be listening to us all the best and to enjoy the journey.
This episode of the podcast was brought to you by the Investment Banking Leaders Club. And to keep leveling up your career, join the club at ibleadersclub.com for exclusive insights, leadership strategies, and career growth resources straight from the industry's top professionals. I want to say thanks to our key partner, Altrum, the global leader in financial deal gifts, awards, and recognition, for their ongoing support of our mission to empower both aspiring and senior investment banking leaders. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, best of luck on your growth journey.